There's a lady walking like 3 Shelties out there. But anyways, what am I talking about? You know, when it comes to like, if you're going to be like van life and but van bumming, you know, bum and change is one thing, but learn your resources in any sort of town or place you're at. And what am I talking about? Like on the way back into town, I knew a good place to pick seaweed, and I loaded up. I should have loaded up even more seaweed. I need to get some sealed containers. You know, something I can put into the cooler that will never leak. And never say never, because it can still happen. Put them in there, and then I'd have that seaweed last so much longer. I found some kombu. You know, it's for those that don't know, that's the name for bull kelp. And it was floating right up near the deal. I looked it over, make sure it wasn't deteriorated. It's still really clean. And so I cut up some of the tube, some of the long whip, and I could have taken like double, if not triple, the amount of seaweed off that one thing of kombu. And it's like saves on vegetables. Just like if you're out in the woods and you find like different wild edibles, if you happen to know your mushrooms and stuff. But what about coming to the cities? What about the cities? Well, when it comes to the cities, I don't care for the cities whatsoever. I've probably said on many different occasions how there's really not much I want to deal with, because honestly, it's not that the cities are a bad place. It's that as kind of a civilized bum, you know, I'm not one of these fucking ferals running around. Some of these people have used way too many drugs, and you could get into the long details of why it is the way it is. But a lot of it's economics, job, and the state subsidizes these people. You know, you give someone $1,000 a month, some food stamps, and a cell phone, and shitty health care, and yeah, they'll live in a tent. There's just people that were fuck ups back in the day. They used to have to work a job, and back in the day you could afford rent. So you come into these towns and you just see a bunch of ferals, you know, and you're like, I don't want to deal with ferals. When I was out in the woods out there in the middle of nowhere, I'd see maybe 5 vehicles a day out there, and I was on kind of an in between main drag. So if you wanted to cut, not go all the way this way or that way, you could just take the back way through. And part of that road's actually paved, actually. So what's my point in that? I see 5 people a day, and those people aren't going to be bugging me. One person might poke up there like, oh, I saw something over there. You know, it's like, it's one of those gigs where when you get out there on the road, you basically... you learn, here's how to really plan out a town. When you're in the middle of nowhere, first off, you learn whatever resources you have around. For instance, if you've got clean running water around, that can save you. It'll save you from having to go into town. If you've got enough food, you could be somewhere in the middle, and if nobody can see you, you drop a log in front of your road, you know, like some rotten log, and you'll likely not see anybody for God knows how long. And then basically you've got your water, you got some wild edibles growing everywhere, whatever type of food. And then after that, you figure, got to go into town eventually. So you plan your whole thing out. You hit up your food banks. And people are like, hit up the food banks. Yeah, if you're kind of van bumming, some people are like, van life. I'm a van lifer, that I'm also a bum. You know, if you're going to be going through a town, like some towns I'll bum, some towns I won't. This town, because I grew up here, I'm not going to bother. Also, I know this town it's infested with uncouth homeless, so it's like, you ain't making no money here. And I've seen the vehicles that people drive. It's a mix. If anything, I'd have a sign that says, just want to get enough gas to get out of here. That'd probably get me the gas pretty fast. But point is, you get to a town and you get online and you look up what days are the food banks open. You learn where all the food banks are. You actually copy and paste the locations. You kind of scout it out on Google Maps. You figure, okay, this one's open this day, this one's open this day. If all of them are open on the same day, that's the best. Now, you got to think, how far across the town am I going to drive and then drive back? So if you can do it where you do all your shopping on one day. Like you go, just like a garbage route, just like a delivery route, you go one way, you know, and then you go the other way, you know. And basically you load up on food. You go through and look at the food, and you think to yourself, what can I do with this? That's when you head to your Dollar Tree and your Walmart. You know, like Dollar Tree, just because buy a ton of cheap ramen, buy a ton of cheap noodles. You know, get yourself a bunch of, like, for me, in my case, I love Angel Hill pasta. Because understand this, when you get to some of these small towns, the food's gonna cost way fucking more. So you load up on whatever food you get. And like, for instance, sometimes, like, say you're out in some place and there's like a wild fruit tree, load up, dude. I was out there at this place that there's kind of a, I used to go smelting, and there was a ton of blackberries. I picked a whole basket of blackberries. It was awesome, you know? And then after that, if you know someplace in town that has a fruit tree that nobody cares about, load up on whatever. And then when you get out there, you got to just go through your food and figure, okay, this is going to spoil first from the food bank. This is going to last however long. So you just start planning your cooking around that. And then by the end of it, like, optimally, there are some places, just due to limited sun, I won't camp until I'm out of, like, perishable food. Once I'm just down to, like, dry goods and vegetables that don't really rot, like, or I just got some fresh seaweed. Once I'm down to that level, then I'll park in the shade spots where I'll get so much sun a day, it'll recharge my solar unit, but it won't really be great sun. It'll be more enough to play video games and watch TV, but it won't be the good sun I need for refrigeration. Because my refrigerator takes 30 to 40 watts. And so, you know, if you're going to have perishable food, you're going to want enough consistent sun. And that, you know, honestly, that's one of the reasons you want at least maybe 400 or more watts, and then a huge solar generator, because then when the day is really good on sun, you just store up the extra energy for places. You might store up a ton of energy one day, and then you could have, like, enough energy for your refrigerator for 2 or 3 days. So you could park in shady spots. But yeah, you kind of plan it out, and then you plan, okay, when you go back out to the outlands, for instance, water bottles. You might want to have an extra 30 gallons to 50 gallons of water. Even if you have clean water running by you. When I say clean, it's not, you got to boil it. But once you got that clean water, then you can be parked in some spots for God knows how long. And you might plan it out to where you look at this place and you think, okay, I know I don't want to camp this right now because I got a bunch of perishable food. So what I'll do is I'll drive by this area and I'll stay up on this hill because there's no water up there, but I'm close enough to where the clean water, a campground or something where I can refill my water. I'm close enough to that to where I can go back to that right afterwards. And then I can head to a deeper spot out there where I could drop a log in front of the road and nobody's going to know I'm there. And so basically you're out there and you could be out there for like a month solid. And at some point, basically, you're going to run out of regular perishable food. You know, like, it'll be dried goods and vegetables. Like, cabbage lasts forever. Some vegetables, like onions, whatnot, potatoes, they got a good long shelf life. Certain vegetables, they're on a different spectrum. Like with cabbage, as long as you peel the outer leaves, there's fresh cabbage underneath. And so you basically just plan it out like that to where eventually the shady spot. Dog, you're 1 second. Get off of that. But anyways, you get out there to that point where you're out of, like, the regular perishable food that you need a refrigerator for. So if the refrigerator's on, you're just cooling water or something. It's not a necessity. It's just cooling water just in case you want to mix some drinks. And this is also if you happen to be smoking pot at the time. You know, like, you got a little drink, you got a little pot, you know, maybe once or twice a week you have yourself a little buzz time. I can't smoke pot currently because I want to go get a decent company. But basically, yeah, you plan it all out to where you can do a huge loop. You could spend out in the outlands easily a month, 2 months, maybe even 3 if you had enough supplies, without having to go back to town and deal with the people. And that's where you get some extra of everything. You always have an extra backup of this or that. Like if you lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And the reason for that is effectively it's just less nonsense to deal with. And coming into towns, like I gotta say, for all the problems that my hometown has, we got really good food banks. Well, no, actually, let me see. We got a couple good food banks. I've been in, like, some of the places I've been in my travels had immaculately good, like Mesquite, Nevada had immaculately good food banks. I remember one time I got like a whole ass spiral ham. I used to get like fried chicken. biscuits and stuff. I used to get like everything, and then of course you get the baked goods, the bakery stuff. St. George was incredibly good too. I mean, that's where I strategically load up. I would stay in certain cities and then kind of work it up. Some places I'd even bum them. Some places you can, some places you can't. And part of the thing is you do the bumming after you basically got all the food, all the supplies, all the everything. And so what happens is that, you're leaving town anyways. So why not? If you're not going to be back in that area for 6 months to a year, then it doesn't matter if you bum it. Like you bum through, you make your money, you move on. Hopefully you leave with one. If you got 2 tanks on your van, you leave with 2 vans, two, I don't know what the hell that symbol is, but you leave town with, a tank of gas. 1 tank, hopefully working on empty. Maybe, well, why would you want 1 tank hopefully empty? Because you get to the next place to bum and you already got an empty tank to work with. You don't want to show up to a place you could bum a full tank. But on the other hand, if you get a full tank, you know what you can do? You can basically just go explore a bunch of area in the middle of nowhere for no reason. So there is an advantage. I mean, I remember this one time. This happens every once in a while. Like when I first started this big journey kind of bumming around, I wasn't even out. I was just getting my dog on the hood of the van, early morning, Montana. And I didn't even have my sign up or nothing. And I had the sign coming out, and this guy shows up, these 2 individuals in a Mercedes. They're kind of a little bit older, but you could tell drugs. Probably two rich kids, but they were older. Still living off like what are the children like of Mr. and Mrs. Howe like? Well, that's probably it right there. But $50, $40 in the tank, $10 in the pocket. Wasn't even out there for a second. Another time I was in Fillmore, Utah. And it was the same thing. It wasn't even a few minutes. And this old hippie chick, who really didn't like Trump, she was adamant about that, shows up and puts $100, fills up both tanks. And I was actually hoping to bum that area a lot longer, in fact. But I had a full tank. And so at that point, you're like, I guess, because I'm going to bum the next area, I could explore a little. I could go out there and explore this hillside, this area, these fields, learn some new territory. And then you find another area that may be pretty good that'll get you to the next area. And you work it. And so, you go into town, you get your resources, and then if you feel like bumming it, you bum it. But if a town's got like way too many uncouth homeless around, it can be a lot harder. Also, if a town has too many rich people around, people who look like they're peacocking that look like they're rich, I found that can be a mixed bag too. Now, I'll tell you what, the other day, is a few weeks ago at this point, because I haven't been bumming for a while. It's like almost 3 weeks ago or so. I made $325 in 4.5 hours. And I was doing my move, the fucking, what was it called? Maximum train wreck. I'm a fat guy, so I'm shaking my ass. And I did okay. Now, if someone says, well, if you make decent money bumming, why not just keep on bumming? Because I'd rather drive truck. That's why I don't smoke pot. Because I can drink occasionally, but that's why I don't smoke pot, man. Because I'm just like, in the long run, I'd rather drive a truck, because I'd rather put the miles on their truck and travel than put the miles on my van. And yeah. So the way I work is I either make a lot of money driving truck, or I just kind of casually bum around. I have absolutely no interest in living in my house. There's people living in it, renting it, and they're like, but if they're renting it, why are you? Because I put the money right back into the house. I assume something will go wrong, even though I did a remodel on it. Moral of the story is that, yeah, from my perception, this whole thing of working hard and all that, no, I'm all about working hard enough. Take it easy.